What's going on, everybody? My name is Aiden and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask a question today that I feel like is probably on most Bulls fans' minds these days, and that is there truly no market for Zach LaVine? Now, at the end of the day, even in the last video, I've seen comments saying that the Bulls are going to go back to continuity and that there's not necessarily going to be any major changes for the Chicago Bulls up in this trade deadline. And that does contradict the recent reports about, of course, Shams, LaVine wanting out of Chicago being open to the trade and stuff of that nature. It does contradict it in one way, form, or fashion. So, what is going to be the outcome? Let's discuss a little bit about it in this video. Of course, we don't know the outcome. Of course, this is only, I guess, a predictions video, if anything. But we just got to discuss it at the end of the day. Let's vent our frustrations about the trade deadline and how it could potentially go in this video. Before we get any further, if you like the video and you want to see more from me, drop a like, drop a follow, and or subscribe if you are new. And let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls and, I guess, the situation that is coming to the Chicago Bulls. Again, we don't have that many games. I think we have less than 10 games before the trade deadline occurs. And we've got some winnable games coming up as well. Let's be honest, we do. So with all that being said, is there a possibility there for the Chicago Bulls to be able to trade Zach LaVine, get the pieces in, and move on and push forward like teams like the Toronto Raptors have, like the New York Knicks, like the Pacers will be? Can we be that type of team in the future? Well, we need to discuss the trade market for Zach LaVine. So, there's contradicting stories here, I believe. I think Woj has been the guy that's saying there's no market for Zach LaVine, or maybe it's ESPN, not necessarily Woj, saying that there's no true market for Zach LaVine and everything in between. And then you got guys like Shams that is referring to, obviously, the teams that are interested. Of course, that, Zach LaVine is open to these types of teams and whatnot. So there is a little bit of, I guess, an interesting development in the contradictions with each other. Not saying they're massively contradictory. I'm just saying one person or one, I guess, source, maybe it's The Athletic, is suggesting one thing, that Zach LaVine does have a market and that Zach LaVine is interested in going to these certain types of teams. And obviously with Shams, I think people are very well aware that he does like to speak to agents and players, compared to Woj saying there is no market for Zach LaVine and he's more in touch with probably the GMs and stuff like that. I can't tell you that's 100% true. A friend told me that, so I'm telling you that if it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong, okay? But, again, there's a bit of a contradictory there. So maybe there is no market for Zach LaVine. Let's dive into that avenue real quick. Maybe there is no market for Zach LaVine. Maybe Zach LaVine's contract is too much for people to really invest in. Maybe the Zach LaVine injury issues is too much for people to invest in. Maybe the risk for Zach LaVine is just not worth it for some teams. And maybe seems like the Indiana Pacers that could afford that risk decides to go elsewhere. And maybe that does end the Zach LaVine trade rumors dead and buried. For now. Key thing here is for now. Let's not forget, I think February 8th is when the trade deadline occurs. There is a long way away from February 8th. I mean, maybe games-wise there isn't, but from a day-to-day basis, there is still, what is it, 2.5 weeks? Something along those lines until the trade deadline. Things can change dramatically from then. And the way that I'm going to give you an example here is desperation, ladies and gentlemen. This could go for both sides. Desperation from the Bulls and desperation from other teams. I'll give you an example. Obviously, we know that it's publicized that LaVine does want to go elsewhere. Whether it's his coming out of his mouth, or whether it's coming out of his agent's mouth, or whether it's coming out of the reporter's mouth, it's out there. Zach LaVine does want to move away from the Chicago Bulls. So, the Bulls could be searching for the perfect deal for day after day after day, trying to find perfection in a trade that may never come. So then you got a dilemma on your hands. Okay, you might not get perfection from the upcoming trade with Zach LaVine. What then? Do you become desperate? Get rid of Zach LaVine for salary fillers? Get rid of Zach LaVine for draft compensation? Get rid of Zach LaVine knowing you're not going to get a great return for him? Or do you become patient and keep Zach LaVine and let him suffer the consequences on his own of him wanting to leave the Chicago Bulls and not getting his wish. There's an option there. Desperation, ladies and gentlemen, could come into play. Let's move into desperation for other teams. A hypothetical situation here. We'll talk about the Lakers because they are the most viewed and most talked about team in relation to Zach LaVine. There's recent reports that the Lakers want a point guard. Well, Zach ain't a point guard, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe from the Bulls' perspective, he plays it from time to time. He's not a true point guard. He will not be the point guard that the Lakers are looking for. So, those reports could be, hey, the Lakers want a point guard. What if the Lakers can't find the point guard that they want? What happens then? Because again, they have point guards. D'Angelo Russell is a point guard. Obviously, they use LeBron James as a point guard. They have point guards. They need a specific point guard. That's the issue with the Lakers. So, what if they can't find that specific point guard? What happens then? Desperation could come into play. Maybe it won't be, but maybe it will. And that's when, okay, we're not going to get a point guard. We're not going to get the point guard that we need. The Lakers right now are on a negative record, I believe. They only have one more win from the Chicago Bulls. Let's put that into perspective as well. For all the in-season tournaments games that they have won and winning the trophy itself, they are only a game ahead of the Chicago Bulls in terms of the wins and the loss record. So desperation might come into play and say, hey, look, we don't know what we're doing. We can't get the guys that we want. We need to make that change. Zach LaVine is still on the table. He's a 20-point per game scorer at his best. I think he could thrive in a new environment playing with LeBron and AD. Is that the risk you want to take? And desperation could play a factor. Now, I'm not saying desperation is the only thing that's going to lead to the Bulls getting the trade. Maybe eventually, by the time the trade deadline happens, more teams will just be interested and it won't be desperation. It could just be, hey, look, the Knicks made a trade, the Raptors made a trade, the Pacers made a trade. We might need to make a trade to really go and compete with these guys. Maybe it's not desperation. Maybe it's a logical reason. Maybe there's a fit issue that Zach LaVine can fit right into. Maybe it's the fact that you can get rid of role players for a superstar or an all-star caliber player. My apologies, not superstar level. And that could be an issue. Maybe it could be a salary cap issue. A team could pay for Zach LaVine's contract, could use him, like the Pistons, for example, to maybe just get some more excitement in their organization because it looks down bad at the moment. They could get a guy like Zach LaVine on the max contract, and they can help bring some energy into the organization. LaVine can do that, and the Bulls could get some role players and some picks. It could happen that way. There could be a number of reasons. I don't think win-now teams are going to be the only people interested in Zach LaVine. I think Zach LaVine should be interested in only win-now teams, in all honesty, because if he wants to leave the Bulls, he best go to a team that wins now. Otherwise, a lot of people are going to be confused by the Zach LaVine situation. But teams might see things differently, and teams might have different reasons for wanting a Zach LaVine. So I don't think it's dead and buried yet. I do think right now it's gone very quiet, and that can suggest at this point in time there is no market for Zach LaVine. But things can change in the blink of an eye. The trades that we have done in the past, some of them have come within a blink of an eye. That Derrick Rose trade, I'm convinced, did not take months and months of discussions. It just happened, and people were stunned by it. When we signed Dwayne Wade a couple of years ago, that didn't just, it didn't take months to get to that point. It just happened. Same with DeMar. Free agency signings, trades, they're random sometimes. And you just don't know. So every day is going to be important going forward. And we'll see if there's a market for Zach LaVine or not. The way that I see it, the market is not dead for Zach LaVine until February 9th occurs and the trade deadline is shut. That's when we'll know if there's a no trade market for Zach LaVine in my eyes. And we'll wait and see. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and a follow, and or subscribe if you are new. Did what I say make sense to you guys, or do you feel there's more to this that meets the eye? Time will tell. Have a wonderful and safe day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay tuned for more. Take care, and peace.